Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so happy you made it back here. Today we're just going to be digitizing a custom file that somebody ordered, and it's going to take a minute. Okay, this is a very intricate design. This is not something that is going to take 5 minutes. It's going to take 10 minutes of your time, but it really took like 2 hours of my own time. But that's besides the point. So basically, you're just going to start with one fill at a time. I decided to start, of course, from the back of the design, like the background, into the front. So if you think about it, somebody's skin is kind of like behind their eyebrows. So basically, I started off with the fill of the face, and I slowly made my way around the perimeter of the face and just dragged the nodes to fit kind of just where the face would be. I know there's like some shadows, but I'm basically just ignoring the shadows because with certain designs, you do not want to have every single thing included, especially if it can get just a little bit much. So like even the blush on the cheek, I'm gonna leave it out because we don't really need it, you know, and they also said it's fine if we leave it out, so I'm just gonna go over the blush. Oop, we made a little accident, but that's okay because we just moved the node right back in place. Sometimes when you click on a node, you'll notice that all of the nodes will just like instantly distort the image, and that's okay. That just means you're gonna have to put in a little bit of extra work in that specific spot and zoom in and kind of like make sure it fits, you know, and move the nodes around just to make sure it creates that shape that you initially wanted to begin with. And yeah, so I'm just going around every crevice of the skin and making sure that it somewhat is filled. And I already know I'm going to have to go back in and adjust this once I fill some more things that are around this fill, because there could be a possibility of some gapping issues. And I don't want that to happen, so I don't mind going back in and adjusting it. But for the most part, I'm just making sure that there's as few amount of nodes as possible, because it's just going to be helpful in the long run once I go back in and start adjusting everything. I also love using the smooth shapes button that's inside of the toolbox underneath Auto-digitize, and it's probably in a couple of other places as well. But essentially, smooth shapes does what we already are doing. So it basically is just going to cut down your node transformation time down, I guess. So you really don't need a lot of nodes to begin with. You really don't need them. You don't need a whole bunch, because in my mind, I think that that's where the needle is going to end up. So if you have a whole bunch of nodes, there could be a needle jam in that place. So essentially, you just want a few nodes. You don't need a whole bunch. But as you can see, I make sure that the nodes that are underneath other fills are sort of like underlapping instead of overlapping, I guess. And so basically the back of her mouth, the red fill, is going underneath the fill of the face, just so that there's no gapping there, because there could be a gap in between the face and the mouth, because once tension happens, when things are stitching out, that's just kind of what happens. And so even for fills that are the same color, you can adjust the object's sequence and make the neck go underneath the head, because you wouldn't want the neck to stitch out above the head, you know? So you would just kind of move the neck portion underneath the head inside of the object sequence, and then adjust the nose accordingly to make sure it's sort of like underlapped instead of overlapped underneath the head, so there's no gapping in between the neck and the head itself. And basically I'm just going around the design and clicking on all of the same-ish skin tone color that makes the most sense. Now, this part right here really gave me a run for my money, because I was really hesitant to figure out exactly how I wanted this part to stitch out, because it needs to be a part of the design, because a shoulder is necessary, but I also didn't want it to cause issues to the needle in that specific spot, because there's going to be a lot of thread there for the cat. So it was a little bit tricky, but I really just kind of pushed through, and I was like, I'll just come back to this and fix it in a little bit. And so yeah, I guess some word of advice: if a fill or a section starts to get under your skin, you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed, don't be afraid to hop on over to a different fill, get that started, and then work your way back over, and then give it some TLC. I'm just kind of making sure that's underlapping underneath the white part of the cat's mouth, just so that there's no gapping there. Sometimes I'll click on a color and I'll think that that's what I want to do, and then I'll just delete it because I'm like, no, let's not do that yet. So as you can see, now I'm going to the green, and I was trying to figure out the best course of action for these eyes, because the hearts that are inside of these eyes could easily cause some gapping because the fill is so tiny. So I said to myself, I'm gonna make the eyes fully, completely stitch out, and then just put a heart on top of the eye so that there's no gapping, and it's just like 2 seconds of stitches. Not even that, like super duper couple of seconds of stitches just right there on top of the eyeballs, so that there's no gapping, because I don't want gapping. Gapping sucks. I'm sure you're wondering about why I have the fills on the cats, the details filled before the background of the cat, because that would make the most sense. That is coming, but because the black is connected to the character, and that would, in turn digitize a couple of other things that are important, I am holding off on that and just kind of going with the flow and not worrying about that just yet. Again, the smooth shapes button is amazing for stuff like that. As you can see, there is a ton of nodes in the hair, but using the smooth shapes button drastically reduced the node count, and now I can just go in and move the nodes accordingly to make the hair a lot bigger and kind of just ignore some of the colors that are there because we don't really need them. So I'm just moving the nodes closer to the cheek a little bit. And I decided to bring it into the neck. I was going to have another layer of fill right there, like separate, but I decided to just make it one large fill to make it a little bit simpler. And now I'm just going to move on to the eyebrows, because that is also a part of the orange thread color. So I'm basically just making sure that the angle for the eyebrows are going to make the most sense. I don't want it to go, side to side. I'd rather it go sort of at like a diagonal up and down situation, because I think that would look the most realistic for the eyebrows. So I just kind of adjusted it accordingly. And as you can see, I'm going back in now and adjusting the tan skin color fill to underlap underneath the orange fill, because there will be gaps there if I don't do what I'm doing now. So all I'm doing is making sure that the skin is underneath the hair, because there will be gaps. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just moving it around accordingly. Anywhere I see that two fills are going to be touching, I make sure that something is being underlapped underneath. So unfortunately, my screen recording software glitched and I do not have the ending portion of this design, and unfortunately you won't be able to see me finish it, but hopefully the tips and tricks I addressed throughout this video was helpful. Feel free to leave a comment for the next video you'd like to see me digitize something in particular. Go ahead and subscribe and follow me on TikTok. Bye guys!